good afternoon to everyone who's joining us on a Monday afternoon. That's also a bit unusual for us here in EURAXIS India. Normally, as our audience knows, we start on a Friday. We do our webinars on a Friday or Thursday, but we thought, why not, change the routine and kick off the week with a super exciting webinar for those who are interested in the European Research Council grant schemes, and especially who are interested to know more about the support they can have as applicants, and also how to successfully crack the ERC grant. My name is Samrat. I am the country coordinator of EURAXIS, and this is our second webinar on the ERC grants. We had one in the month of July, where we introduced the different grant schemes. That was more of an info session on the different schemes the ERC has, the different calls. You can also go on our YouTube channel and watch that. Today, what we're going to do in the next 60 minutes or so, as I said, we will tell you a bit more give you more tips and advice, if you're interested to apply for one of the ERC grants, what kind of support is there and how the process is as an applicant, as we also have one ERC grantee with us today. Let me briefly introduce our speakers today. I start with Laura Pander. Laura is the coordinator for personal grants at the Research Support Office of Eindhoven University Technology in the Netherlands. Very warm welcome to you, Laura. We're very happy to have you with us. Our next speaker is Manas Upadhyaya. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Mechanics of the École Polytechnique in France. And he's also a researcher in Solid Mechanics Laboratory. And he is a winner of an ERC grant. And we're very much looking forward, Manas, to know a bit more about your road to the ERC grant, the application process, and why to apply for an ERC grant from your point of view. A very warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
Last but not least, it's an immense pleasure to welcome Christine Graaf. Christine Graaf is a national contact point and the national delegate of the program committee for 3 areas of the EU Research Innovation Framework Program. It means the European Research Council, Maurice Security Actions, and spreading excellence and widening participation. Now, Christine has a very special role as a national contact point, means she is really there to support candidates who are interested to apply for the ERC from all over the world. Today, it's very much focused on you here in India. And if some of you are joining also outside of India, we also very warmly welcome you and hope this will be a useful webinar session for you. Now, without any further delay, I would like to ask first Dr. Manas to tell us a bit about his road to the ERC grant, how he applied, what was the motivation, and what he's doing right now, and what tips and hints and advice he has for future applicants. Thank you so much. Manas, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Samrat. I'm going to share my screen. I suppose you can see it.
Yes,
okay.
Very well. Thank you.
Okay, so I had a rather weird and interesting, depends on the perspective, approach to getting the ERC grant. I had written 2 proposals, and I'm going to talk to you about those proposals. So I'm Manas Upadhyaya. I'm an assistant professor at the École Polytechnique in France. And I'll give you first my educational background and work experience. So I did my bachelor's of engineering in the mechanical engineering field and finished it in 2009 from the KJ Somaiya College of Engineering in the University of Mumbai. Then I moved to France, to the Georgia Institute of Technology, which is a university in the US, but they have a campus in France, a permanent campus. And I did my master's and PhD studies, so graduate studies at the same time at this institute. So in 2014, I graduated with my PhD degree. And in the meantime, I also was a doctoral researcher associated with the LEM3 laboratory of CNRS in France. And I spent a few months as a visiting scientist at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in the US. And then I did my postdoc at the Paul Scherrer Institute in Switzerland from 2014 to 2018, after which I applied for a permanent position as an assistant professor at the École Polytechnique, which I have been occupying since January 2019. So this gives you an idea of my work experience, which was pivotal in the ERC proposals. When I applied for the first time, it was in 2017, in October 2017, for the ERC Starting Grant 2018, and this was unsuccessful. And then I applied again in October 2019, and this was successful in 2020. So I'm going to talk to you about both these experiences and what was missing and what was better for the next, for the second attempt. So let's go through the first attempt and my profile. So you may know that for an ERC grant, it is as important to have a good project as it is to have a good CV. So in 2017, October, I had a temporary position as a postdoc about 3 years after my PhD. My host institution was the Paul Scherrer Institute, which is a well-reputed institute in Europe. And at the time, I had peer-reviewed publications, which were 14 journal articles, of which 7 were as first author in some good journals, plus 1 thesis. And I had a very modest impact factor of 6 with some 134 citations on Google Scholar at the time. And at that time, I had given about 2 invited talks. I had supervised 2 internships and 1 master project. And I was a reviewer and organizer of a symposium in a conference earlier that year when I applied, and the year before. I had an award and some travel grants and some international collaborations. So the dossier was building up, sort of. And then I applied for this grant in 2018 on modeling and simulations to guide additive manufacturing of metals and alloys. So this topic was quite new at the time, quite interesting at the microstructural level where I work. And I come from a modeling and simulations background. So I really proposed a full-blown project in that direction. Now, some of the errors that I made was I started conceiving the project about 4 months before submission. And I started writing the B1 and B2 parts only 2 months before the deadline, which was a very bad idea. Also, I did not seek much support from colleagues to provide criticism, which also was not a great idea. And other factors that were affecting my application was that I was also searching for a permanent position at the same time. And I had some postdoc commitments and private commitments, which took a lot of time. So the result was that all of this combined and also my inexperience led to a rejection after step 1. But there was a silver lining in the sense that instead of a C, I got a B, which was that the panel evaluated the project as high quality, but not sufficient to pass step 2. So it was ranked in this range, and only top 32% of the proposals were retained for step 2. So this was rejected in step 1. And some of the key things that I noted what the panel said were as follows. So the project was interesting, but its feasibility was not considered convincing given the aims to handle too many different models. So I proposed a very, very large scope, and so they deemed it as too ambitious. They were happy with my publication record, but they were not so happy with my impact. So it was a moderate impact, and this was quite visible in the reviewers' comments, which I'll show you in the next slide. So this was not highly ranked enough to be retained for step 2. So let's go through the reviewer comments. Reviewer 1 said that increasing number of publications not involving PhD supervisors provides only a degree of evidence that I am independent. So they were trying to say that I'm not very independent. Again, capacity to perform independent research of high quality, but with moderate impact. So independence and impact were quite a big factor. Also, another comment was that I had limited experience in raising research funds. And then again, impact was moderate, number of citations were moderate. And the track record was not yet groundbreaking. And again, moderate impact. So these were the key factors. And this was the takeaway from my understanding of the reviewers' comments, that the project was too ambitious, unachievable. There was high risk, but without mitigation. And the high gains were not very evident. And my own profile, I was in my third year after PhD, still doing a postdoc, not very independent in their eyes. I had a temporary position which raised the question whether I'm good enough to find a permanent one or not. And my research was not impactful after 8 years having 134 citations. Okay, so I worked on all these aspects and more. During my second attempt in October 2019, I already had a tenured assistant professor position at the École Polytechnique, and I was 5 years after my PhD. So Polytechnique, and this is something important, that the institute has a very important impact on your CV. So Polytechnique is one of the best universities in France. It's ranked second and in France and 48 in the world. If you follow this ranking in terms of employment reputation, it's first in France, 11th in the world. And most international universities, it's first in France and 33rd in the world. So this played a big role. My peer-reviewed publications had improved, record had improved in the time. I had an impact factor of 10 instead of 6 2 years back, and 270. So I effectively doubled there. And then I had 17 publications and 9 as first author. I really started seeking out, I was starting to get more invitations. So I got 13 invited talks instead of 2 when I applied for the first time. And also in the meantime, I won a grant to pursue high-risk research in additive manufacturing, which motivated this new project, a modified project that I applied. I had also applied for a French Young Researcher grant, which was in concurrence with the ERC grant. So you want to show that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. I had some preliminary experimental results to support my application, which was lacking the last time. And I narrowed down the focus of the project because it was too wide and pushed much further the boundaries of innovation in this narrowed down aspects. Then in terms of supervision, supervision service and awards, not much changed. I had just one short-term exchange PhD student with which we published an article, which was a very nice article having a high impact. So this was added to the CV, and I had created a successful collaboration with a professor from the University of New Hampshire, which resulted in one article. So the CV was starting to be much better than what it was before during my first attempt. Now, during the second attempt, I applied with the same panel, and I applied it as a re-application of the previous submission. This time, the project was different. It was harnessing, it was a combination of experiments and modeling and simulations to focusing on aspects that I was more capable of doing based on my background, rather than having a wide scope of everything that needs to be done in this field. So that was an important aspect. And I established some collaborations in the highest risk parts where the jury could think that I may not be capable of pursuing this, but I proved that I would be leading the studies by doing some preliminary results and leading these preliminary results with my with these collaborators. I attended seminars and received support from my host institution, which was also very helpful. And I had started 8 months before the application to conceive this project or reconceive this project and resubmit. So I started writing 5 months before the deadline and finished the first draft of both B1 and B2 3 months before the deadline. The project was very different from attempt 1. I removed some unrealistically ambitious aspects. I got a strong support from my laboratory. Laboratory here means a department at other locations, other universities. And I got support in form of administration, from engineers and equipment available at the lab. I discussed with several colleagues at my colleagues at my lab and asked them to be very, very critical with extreme prejudice to find every little mistake. And I worked on every positive and negative comment that they gave me. And I reworked the draft several times. Every word, every punctuation matters. And then submitted and spent the next month making my website, this one. This is very important. You want to show your online presence to the jury, show that you have been working a lot in the field and that you are independent. This is your website, your research, this is you. Okay, so round 1, I got a I got an email from ERC and it took me a minute to open it because I knew the disappointment I had the last time, but I passed round 1. This was in January or February, I don't remember precisely when. But there was a caveat. This was in 2020. There was COVID. And so they had decided to have no interview round. That means everything was based on what I had submitted them. So round 2 without interview, I get another email from ERC, and this time round 2 was passed as well. And I really felt like Nadal winning Wimbledon for the first time in 2008 after losing twice before. So I was worried about this because I am better at interviews than I am at writing stuff. But clearly this time it had worked in my favor. Okay, so this were some panel reviews. This time it got an A and it was scored in the top 36%. And the things that I had worked on from the previous review helped a lot. So here they said that I have a good CV with skills in both advanced characterization methods and computational mechanics, aligned with the core elements of the project. So it was a balance between experiments and simulations, and the track record had gotten much better than before. The project itself was contributing to the progress of the field that I wanted to work in. And there were novel aspects recognized beyond the state of the art, both experimental and modeling aspects. And so even though the project was high risk, the details were sufficiently convincing to give a good work plan and the mitigation options in terms of its feasibility. And okay, so this is where I would like to wrap up and give you some key takeaway points that I think are important. Winning the ERC grant is a combination of both PI CV and the project. And the project needs to be, and the CV as well, needs to be written clearly, concisely, precisely, and boldly, but without arrogance. And that's a very thin line to walk. Writing the project itself requires a lot of time, so make sure you have it. For the second attempt, I had taken 8 months and I had done nothing else basically in terms of research, but really focused myself here, and I had the hindsight from previous experience. Otherwise, you might consider postponing the thing. Really, it depends on your situation. And with respect to the criteria that ERC has in terms of age after PhD. And then seek out constructive criticism from colleagues. Ask for very harsh criticisms. Don't be shy. Work on every criticism and reinforce every positive aspect. I think that's extremely important. Make the panel believe in your idea. So for that, you need to, of course, believe in your idea yourself, but you have to also choose your panel wisely and see if there is at least one panelist who could be your referee. So as you know, they repeat the panel every 2 years with a few changes. So just look at the panel from 2 years before the year you want to apply and see what really, if there is a person you could correlate to and write thinking about that person. And well, like it or not, luck does play a role. So in my case, it was, I had no interview, but I was lucky in that sense. So good luck and thank you for listening. I'm done, yeah.
Thank you so much, Manas. A very, I think, very interesting story you told us. That you applied once, and the shortcomings. I think that's very important because it's a very tough grant to crack, and it might not work the first time. It might need a second time, and then you also showed us, that the preparation time was longer. You already had advanced more in your research career, and you also mentioned the support you got from your lab at that time. And I think that's the kind of the transition, the keyword for our next speaker. Manas will be with us here till the end, so we will also have the possibility. You have the possibility to write your questions now, and if you want, to ask him. But we continue now with our next speaker, which is Laura. She is, as already mentioned, at the support office at Eindhoven University of Technology. And Laura exactly gives support to potential to candidates who are willing to apply for the ERC grant with her university as the host institution. So Laura, the mic is yours. Thank you. You are muted, I think.
I hope you can hear me now. I wanted to thank you for this opportunity to
yes.
talk about my work, which I like very much. Let's see if I can share my presentation. I hope you can see it now. So thank you very much. My name is Laura Pander and I work at Eindhoven University of Technology, and I will tell you something about the perspective from the host. So I hope this is insightful for you. Yeah, so Eindhoven University of Technology is situated in the Netherlands. It's a relatively new university or young university. It was established in 1956. And we're in a quite unique position. We're part of the Brainport ecosystem, which is an economic hotspot in the Netherlands. And you might have heard of companies like ASML and Philips. So this is quite high-tech oriented, which is very nice for us as a technical university to be part of. So this gives us a lot of opportunities. But at the same time, we're also interested in fundamental research or more fundamentally oriented researchers. So I had a look at the project database, the link you can see below. It is very interesting to dash through it and look for previously funded projects and see who has been successful and what kind of projects there are. So at TU Eindhoven, we have about 25 starting grants, 8 consolidators, 19 advanced, and also proof of concept. So this is a grant for ERC laureates to have a look at the application potential of their findings. So this is an impression of our university. And I also wanted to explain to you, like a lot of universities do have support for ERC applicants in place. It's just a challenge maybe to get to the right person if you want to apply. So for myself, for TU Eindhoven, we have a research support structure in place, the research support network, and there's a research support office on the central level, and ERC support is offered from there. And there is a reason for that, because a personal grant like ERC is quite specific. So this is not the same as applying for a collaborative program, for instance, or a thematic program. As Manas already told you, it is very important to think about your own idea, your ambition and your vision, and it's closely connected to your track record. So this is something else than applying for a call with your colleagues to look into application potential. So this is really science for science, but I believe this was already presented to you in a previous session. But again, I cannot emphasize too many times that it is very important to think about how to combine your track record, your vision, and your project idea. And I think this was already clear from the talk from Manas, the previous presenter as well. This is taking a lot of time. So it's not only about putting things on paper, but it's also very much about your thinking. Do you have the groundbreaking idea that ERC is looking for? So you really need to invest in this part of your application process. So what is it that we offer for people who are interested in applying for an ERC? So we could start or anywhere in the process, we offer individual advice because the timing is crucial. As Manas already also told you, you really need to be ready for it and you should be able to dedicate the time. So if you don't know, if you're not sure when the deadline is or when would be a good time for you to apply, you can ask your colleagues, but maybe there's also a grant advisor available who also has a lot of experience in talking to researchers. So this might help to decide for yourself what would be a good time for you to apply. So at some point in time, we also organize how to write training. So this is with an external consultant and it's one day and you're off campus. and you're focusing on the writing. So this is not really the hands-on how to write and everybody's working on their own proposal, but to understand a little bit better what ERC is looking for. So how to translate your project idea into something that you can put on paper in order to meet ERC's expectations, in order to try to maximize your success, of course. So after the how to write, we also do project idea development. So this is the crucial part where you really need to think about your idea. And it really helps to not only talk to your colleagues who understand the kind of science that you're working on, but also maybe talk to an advisor or somebody who is a little bit further away from your niche in your discipline, who can say, well, this is not clear to me, and why is it innovative, why is it groundbreaking? For you, it might be very obvious why this is something that the scientific field is really looking for. But maybe from somebody, for somebody a little bit further away, it might not be that obvious, and it really helps in order to get that clear. So as a support team, we also provide proposal review. So this is not about the content, but more like, is the presentation right? Is everything in the proposal? We see a lot of proposals, and it definitely helps to get a better understanding of what ERC is looking for, or how to set up your proposal, what could be a nice way in order to present your idea. And after the deadline, if you're successful and the proposal is being retained for step 2, we also provide interview training. So that means that we can organize mock interviews, but maybe also give you general information so that you know how an interview by ERC, how it goes, and that you feel prepared. So I must say that most European universities that I know will provide this kind of support, and you can also always ask the National Contact Point whether they have more general tips or information that you can benefit from. But there's not only the proposal and the scientific part, there's also all kinds of other support available, and you need this. So you need maybe financial officers to help you with drafting the budget, which is quite essential. There might be people available who can help you with filling in all the A forms. So the participant portal, this is the online system where you have to submit a proposal. It can be quite complex if you're looking for something. So there might be people who can help you with these kind of nitty-gritty things as well, so that you can focus on the content. But apart from the proposal, you also need a host letter. That means that the host institution, so the university or the institute where you would like to work with your ERC, is also supporting your application for the duration of the grant. And it's very important that you arrange these signatures in time. But also information maybe about the research infrastructure, like do you have access to the lab or to the clean room, but also topics like research data management, open science policy at the university, open access. Maybe there are some legal matters that need some attention. So there is all kinds of support available at the university. If you have this one point of entrance, maybe these people also can refer you to the right people in the organization who can help you with these other things with the proposal. It sounds minor, but these can be crucial in the evaluation as well. You need that everything is in place. So also the budget needs to be okay, but also the things that you say about ethics or access to the lab and so on. So usually universities also support you after the deadline. So at some point in time, there's going to be the result. So if the proposal is successful, you need, or you're going into the next phase, which is the grant agreement preparations. And you need to make some adjustments to the proposal. This will be part of the grant agreement between the university and the ERC, but there's also a supplementary agreement between the university or the host institute and the applicant. So these kind of processes, they will also be supported by the university. And of course, if the success is there, the university is very much willing to support you. But at the same time, I think the university will help you also if you're unsuccessful. So the analysis of the evaluation reports, which is very important if you're considering to reapply for ERC or maybe use a project idea for another grant, it is important to understand what happened. Why were they not convinced? Was something missing? Was something not clear? So the analysis of what happened in the evaluation of your proposal, this is something that the university could help you with as well. And if the proposal is successful, the embedding or the implementation of your project in the department is also going to be very important. So at the HR department, there might be people who help you with the recruitment of your team. But maybe if you're coming from outside of the host organization, there's also a role for HR in the employment of yourself, of course. But there are also other people involved, other stakeholders like project administration, finance and reporting. So this is something that you will have to do in the future, but also lab managers, ethics. So the approval needs to be in place before you start the project. So not at the proposal phase, but as soon as you hear that your project was successful and that you enter the grant agreement negotiations, you need to make sure that the ethics approval will follow as soon as possible as well. So as you can see, there are people at the host organization who can help you with the implementation of the grant to make sure that you can focus on the research and that you are not bothered with too much other stuff. But the other stuff is very important, and make sure that you have everything, well, for yourself clear what needs to be done and how to do this in your host institute. So I already mentioned that if you're from outside of Europe or outside of your host institute and you're going to be employed by the host institute, there's a lot of other things to be taken care of as well. So the HR department for your employment contract, in the Netherlands, we have a collective labor agreement, but still we need to look into things like your salary, but also do you need visa or what about taxes and social security? So this is very important, especially when you're going to move together with your family or if you haven't lived in Europe before. At TU Eindhoven, we also have an additional fellowship program. It's called Irene Curie Fellowship, so not to be confused with Marie Curie Fellowships, for women who are starting a position at TU Eindhoven. So maybe other universities have also these kind of fellowship programs or additional rewards in place. Usually, or many universities also offer support for families. So for instance, a spouse program, if you're moving together with your partner or children, that there is support available, or social activities so that you feel more at home or part of a community a little bit sooner in your new host country. And there could be also all kinds of practical and administrative support available. So maybe opening a new banking account, trying to find out if you're living close to the host institute, maybe medical doctors, how to do this. So there's a lot of support available, but still it can be overwhelming and a lot. And of course, the host institute will do its best to help you. And usually there's also a lot of programs offered for community building, like in Eindhoven, because I already mentioned the Brainport. I don't know why I keep struggling with this. The Brainport Eindhoven, it's quite an international community. We attract a lot of people from outside of the Netherlands and outside of Europe. So there are a lot of international communities. So maybe for French people or Japanese people. And there's also sports and schools and a lot to do. So this is something maybe to look into as well if you're considering to move to Europe with an ERC grant. And that was the end of my presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laura. It's really amazing to see what support system the university has, and I think maybe now you will receive more expressions of interest from India after today's presentation. I think, you know, the Netherlands are an excellent place for conducting research. Also, the work environment, the lifestyle, the life standard, and also, as Laura said, you know, a really excellent support system for you know, candidates outside of Europe from anywhere in the world, of course, including India. Thank you so much, Laura. And with that, I would like to invite our final speaker today, Christine, who is the National Contact Point for the European Research Council grant. Christine, we're very much looking forward to hear from you. What is the NCP? What is the role of an NCP, and how NCP can support candidates who are interested or to apply for the European Research Council grants? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samrat, for this introduction. And I'm very happy to be the last speaker because what I'm going to say complements what Manas and Laura have already been saying. So I represent the network of national contact points. There is such a network in place in all countries in Europe and beyond. So the national contact points usually work at the research councils or at the ministries of each European country. And they have a similar duty in each country. We have the similar tasks. So the structures are put in place to inform, assist applicants with their applications to the Horizon Europe and ERC in particular, and of course to report back to the Commission and ERC about any problems or issues. You can find the contacts of all the national contact points in all European countries at the Funding and Tenders portal. This portal probably has been introduced to you at the previous information session, and it is the portal that the European Commission uses for all applications under European programs, including the ERC. So the national structures, we are paid by the national governments, but we work very closely with the European Commission to help applicants with their application process and to make sure that everybody receives information and assistance irrespective of the country they come from or the support that they might or might not have from their host institutions. Because as Laura explained to you, the host institutions in case of ERC have usually a very big role to play. They have the big universities who are experienced in this type of grants, have very good support services like Eindhoven, for example. At the same time, there are also smaller research institutes or universities that might not have so full-fledged support. And here the national contact points might deliver a sort of same type of service that the universities themselves are delivering to applicants. So we start by informing. That means that we, in all European countries, we regularly give information days to potential applicants, similarly to this one here or the one that was organized by Eurexis India before. We explain applicants what are the conditions of the application. We explain what are the novelties from previous years, the dates. We explain the terminology used and the templates and forms that they have to use to apply for ERC grants. And then we, all NCPs have an open line, so to speak, to all applicants. So applicants, as well as grant advisors from universities and other organizations, can ask us about any questions they might have about ERC. So if they want to understand better how the eligibility rules work for their particular case, or they have a specific question that is not answered by the work program or guide for applicants, then they might turn to us, and we sometimes have to ask the ERC to clarify some aspects for us. And then we also cooperate among one another, so we rely on the collective knowledge of the NCPs. And usually if we have a tricky question, then we can ask the colleagues from other countries if they know the answer or if they have the experience with those tricky situations. And when we need to ask something from the ERC, we share the answers with other NCPs, so we are all well informed of what is happening. We also organize training courses or participate in courses organized by the universities. So we might be one of the speakers that are invited at universities to explain the grants to their potential applicants. What else the NCPs might do, in some countries there are also at national level specific support available for ERC grantees. And the NCPs in each country have a good overview of such support and might inform you. I can give you an example of my country. I come from a rather small country in Europe, which is called Estonia. And we have several financial support measures for ERC applicants. For example, if someone applies with an Estonian organization, they get invited to the interview, but unfortunately they are not successful in the end. Their end result is that their ERC grant is not awarded. Then we have a small national grant to provide funding for 1 or 1.5 years, so that the researchers can either come to Estonia to conduct their research or continue their research in Estonia, and as a crucial point, to reapply. So this kind of bridging grant from one ERC application to another, helping the researchers to focus on reapplying. As you heard from Manas's presentation, this takes quite a lot of effort and dedication, and to be able to afford to do that, then this small bridging grant, I think, is of a great value and is appreciated very much by the Estonian applicants. And then we also have financial support for small visits. We call them, this is linked to an ERC initiative that interested researchers can take short visits to working ERC groups to see how the work is organized there, and perhaps also get some advice with their application. So we run national calls for such small grants for that enable our researchers to go on short visits to ERC grantees teams and learn from them. And finally, we also provide financial assistance with interviews. We help universities to invite former ERC grantees and former panel members to their mock interviews that they are providing for their applicants once they have got to the second stage and are preparing for the interview. So this was, in short, an overview of what NCPs do. So we have the common mission to inform, assist, and cooperate, but also on top of that, each NCP in each country might have additional information and assistance if you're considering applying for that particular country. So that was all from my side, and all the contacts of the national contact points can be found at the address that I'm sharing here below.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's really great, to showcase the network of the national contact points and how it functions and what support systems are there. And also, of course, it's very interesting to know the different approach each country has. Like you told us, in Estonia, there's also this bridging grant for applicants. I think that's something I think very, very cool you can say that, you know, if you have that opportunity, that option as well. I would now like to ask the other panelists also to switch on their cameras and come back to the screen so that we can see you, your nice faces. And, you know, we have now a few minutes left, which we would like to use for the Q&A session. So we already received questions, and I will go through them, and then you can see who of you would like to answer, who, or if they're directly addressed. The first question is about the you know, the context of the speakers. So we will share the presentations of the speakers with you after this webinar. So you will also find the information how to reach out to them. First question is, which I'm taking, is from Subrata Ghosh. Subrata is an MCA grantee at the moment at the Politecnico di Milano in Italy. She's asking, does one have to, if one applies for the ERC, can one also propose a new idea, or does one have to stick to one's current project or research? For instance, she is right now working on materials design for electrochemical energy storage, but she would be very interested to write a project on materials design for wastewater treatments. She's asking, would that be feasible to have the probability to be successful if one kind of writes something complete or new compared to what one has been doing before? Maybe I think, Christine, would you like to take that question?
Yes, I could take that. And as Manas already told you, a successful ERC application is a good marriage between your profile and your project idea. And one of the aspects to consider is, can you effectively convince the readers that you have what it takes to carry out this research? So what you are proposing has to be cutting edge. It has to be really advancing the barriers of current knowledge. And to do so, you need some background in this particular field, in this particular narrow field of what you are going to do. But of course, it depends very much on the field. So it might be that all the methods that you have been using in your current research can perhaps be applicable to this new research. And you can convincingly show that actually you do have the knowledge and you do have the skills that you need to carry out this research in the new direction. And perhaps this new direction and taking these methods that have never been used in this new direction is actually what is the key success, let's say, that brings you the success in this new field. So that would be my take, but it is up perhaps then to your the experts in your field, maybe your colleagues whom you ask for advice, as Manas very convincingly showed. He asked for harsh criticism, and this is one of the things that you can ask this harsh criticism for. Am I actually convincingly showing that I have the skills to carry out this research?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Christine. Would the others like to add something to that, or yeah, Laura?
I think it is also very important to think about the size of the step. So I think a lot of researchers say, well, it hasn't been done before, but that's not enough. So also think about the groundbreaking nature. So how are you really going to contribute to progress in the field? So in that sense, the step has to be a little bit bigger than you would do for any other project. So that is why ERC would like to fund it. So that is in line with Kristen was saying, but I think that helps researchers to understand how ambitious you have to be when you're going to submit an ERC grant. So this ambition is very important, so that it's not incremental and not a minor step forward.
Thank you. Maybe Manas, we could also hear your opinion on that. Yeah, so I entered into the field of additive manufacturing without any background in additive manufacturing. But as Christine said, that you just have to show that what you know can be that you are the one who could answer these questions in the new field that you're going into. So I would say it is not a no, because I can see there is some relationship between electrochemical studies and wastewater management through, I don't know, electrolytic treatments or something like that. If you can show that, okay, I have gained expertise here, and I think this is very much applicable there, I don't see why not. After all of these things that Laura and Christine said are applicable, of course, whether what you bring to the table, is it really worth it or not? And is it bringing a big change in the field that is going to solve Europe's problems or world's problems in this field? So that's a whole another matter. But I don't see the problem there, as long as you don't say that I know how to do math, but I'm going to apply it to social sciences.
Right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a total break from your discipline or field. Yes, I agree. We have a bit of some questions about eligibility. Let me just summarize that. You need to have a PhD to apply for the ERC grants. Any nationality, it's open to researchers from all over the world. And you will be the principal investigator, so you don't have to look for a supervisor, right? You will be the leader of that project. It will be your project. You will be the PI in that. So just to there, I see some questions are regarding the eligibility, but there's one question which I also find a bit intriguing, is about the career break. Maybe Christine, you could enlighten us in that. Prasida Menon is asking about the eligibility criteria, the number of years after PhD. In the MSCA, there is, it's more clearly mentioned, but she says in the work program for the ERC, it only mentions in terms of maternity, paternity leave, illness, service, or clinical training. Why is the career break so restricted in ERC grants, whereas in the MSCA it's more broader?
Yes, it's hard to say why. So I will not be answering directly to the question, but indeed maybe one of the reasons is that for MSCA postdoctoral fellowships, you have to fit into this one box or else you're out. But in the ERC, you are never out. You're always in, but it depends on in which box you are in. So first you are in the starting grant box or window, and then when that window closes, another one opens up. So you can always apply. As soon as you have 2 years after your PhD, you can always apply to an ERC grant. But then if you're out of the starting grant, you are in a consolidator. And one might say, and Laura might want to disagree, I don't know, that there is not such a big difference between starting and consolidator. Yes, you are expected to have some kind of, maybe you might be expected to have some kind of experience with group leadership when you're applying for consolidator, but nevertheless, the borderline is quite smooth from starting to consolidator. So my advice to whoever asked this question is, do not be afraid of applying in the next category. So you just and what the ERC keeps saying, and applicants do not necessarily listen to this advice, is to perhaps do not wait until the end of the window to apply. So if you have this great idea, then go for it. And otherwise, if you take into account also the resubmission restrictions, if you wait until the very end and then you apply, then you would not be able to resubmit your application in the same category. So for example, Manas, you applied 2 years after your PhD, and then you had to wait for a year to be able to reapply. So you could still apply in the starting grant category because you had not waited initially until the end of the starting grant window. So just go for the next category.
Okay.
Maybe
yes,
I could add something to it quickly. So there is a tendency that the grants being funded happen to be when you reach towards the end of that category. So for example, in the starting grant, you are eligible to apply after 2 years and up to 7 years from your PhD.
True.
And the tendency does show you that after 5 years or 6 years from the PhD, you get the grant. So I knew that tendency, so I applied 3 years after my PhD, and I was not worried whether I would get rejected or not, because I knew I could reapply within the same category and get some good feedback from the panel.
Yeah, Christine, you want to add something on that?
Yes, the other thing is that resubmission actually raises a person's success rate usually. So it is quite common that if you try for the second time, if you statistically look at people who try for the second time, the success rate is higher than the first trier's success rate. But also ERC insists, and there is statistics about it, that the success rate in general, I mean, for first-time triers is not that dissimilar from the 2 years to 6 years after PhD. Slightly maybe, but not significantly.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we can take 2 more questions. We will try, of course, to answer your questions. You can send us an email to either india@urxis.net, and we will try to see if we can answer them. Otherwise, we will get the help of our dear colleagues, also from our NCP network, but maybe also from Laura and Manas if they are willing to help us with that. But I think because we are almost at the end of the 1 hour session, we will take 2 more questions. Yes. So can one apply as an independent researcher to the ERC, or does one have to have a position at an institute or like a permanent? Or I think Manas, you mentioned also your own journey that the first time you were not, you had like not a permanent position. And the success rate. I think Manas kind of already mentioned it, but maybe just to again go back to this question of does it help to have a permanent position at an institution when one applies, or can one apply as an independent researcher immediately after the PhD, for instance?
So immediately after PhD, no, because you have to have waited for 2 years after PhD to apply. But right. You don't need a permanent position to apply for the grant. What you need is a strong CV, whether your strength comes from the articles you have published or the permanent position you have or temporary, it doesn't matter. What matters is, can you convince the jury? And if you have a host institution letter saying that you are in one place and you get a host institution that is another place, and they say that, okay, you will have a permanent position or whatever position for 5 years to let you do your research, that's more than enough, I think. As long as you have a good CV to back up your project plan. Yeah.
Maybe just one thing to clarify, you always need a host institution, though. You need to apply with an organization. You cannot apply without an organization. So the grant is not given, although it is an individual grant, it is not given to the individual researcher. It is always given to the host institution who is legally responsible, and the host institution will then have a contract with you as the PI of that grant.
And you just said the key word for the last question, Christine, host institution. Please give tips how to find the host institution. This is a question which is there a lot, and it's of course very understandable. People are interested in the grants, but how to find the host institution? If you can, as a concluding remark, just give your personal and professional tips to our audience, how to approach this challenge of finding a host institution. Who wants to start?
I wonder, Laura, if you get a lot of requests with the people wanting to do their research in Eindhoven. As I'm not based in one of the potential host institutions, I'm based in a research council. So my advice usually is indirect. So usually finding host institution goes via research contacts. So you might have a contact with a group. They probably know you, or they maybe, if not personally, they have research contacts with you. They are interested in the proposal idea that you are putting forward, and thus this happen. I know that in some more some institutions are very strict about who they actually allow to apply for this grant under their name, so to speak. But in the case of many institutions, I think they would be just thrilled if a great researcher would want to apply for ERC with a potentially winning idea with them as a host institution. So yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's different from applying for Marie Curie, where also like your supervisor and the expertise of host is part of the evaluation. So I think it is very important to look into your network or the people that you meet at conferences where you would like to work, who you would like to collaborate with. So they're not going to play a role in your ERC because you are the PI, but like the environment, the kind of equipment or lab or expertise available at the host organization. I think that must be leading. Well, there's no supervisor and it's not part of evaluation like in Marie Curie. And at the same time, if you're, if you are coming to TU Eindhoven, but then maybe as a next step, you get an offer from another university, the ERC is portable. So there's always the opportunity to take the ERC with you to another host institution. It's just that they're not going to forward the money to you, to your personal bank account. So that's why you always need a host institution that is going to provide you with an employment contract and also all the facilities to execute the research. ERC wants to be sure that everything is in place, that your working environment is all right. So the host institution needs to be committed. And therefore, I think it is also important, I mentioned embedding in my presentation, that you really go for the content. So not just for the big name. I think that's not really what ERC is looking for, that you go for the most prestigious university, but it has to make sense for you how you want to execute the project. And also small universities or less well-known universities, they do get ERCs. It's about the quality of the candidate, not about the university or the prestigious name of the university. So really go for the content.
And Manas, we want to hear do you have any tip, advice about host institution?
I think it's important to find a host institution that matches your needs. So you need to choose wisely. As Christine and Laura said, it doesn't matter really whether it's the number one in France or in Europe or in the world, wherever. What matters is how is the marriage between you and the host institution is going to work out. And that 1 + 1 is greater than 2, although don't quote me on that, but has to somehow be that together you can make something wonderful and that it works out easily. And how to get into contact with the host institution, I would say just pick up the phone and call them. It's how I do it, at least if I want to start talking to someone. Yeah,
but don't do it on a Saturday or Sunday. In Europe, this weekend
it's sacred.
In India it's the opposite. Saturday, Sunday is the time where you can call. People are free, but in Europe it's the other way around. So call them from Monday to Friday during their office hours. That's the best way, I would say. And with this, I say thank you so much to the three of you. It was a really, I think, a wonderful, fascinating hour. And I hope, dear audience, that you learned, you got the information you were looking for, and it will help you now to, strengthen your application if you're working on application, and also enhance your chances maybe to be successful with your application. We wish you all the best, and wish you also a nice afternoon here in India, and I think lunchtime for the three of you in Europe. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And take care. Bye.
Thanks so much. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good luck to everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.